Undertaker, take me under oceans of oil. I'll be 20,000.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my first tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do a basic text in Cinema 4D and, most importantly, exploding text. I'll be showing you two different ways, one better than the other, but they're both pretty good, so let's get started. First you got to open Cinema 4D, and we're going to start a new project by File New. And I like to change up my render settings a little bit before I get started. So this tab is my render settings tab, so I click render settings, output, choose my drop down arrow, film and video, and HDTV. So it's just set for YouTube in HD. First off, we're going to want to create a 3D text, and to do that there's two ways. We can either go up to our spline object and do a text object, and add a NURBS by going to our NURBS and extrude NURBS, and we can drop our text object into our extrude NURBS and you have a 3D text. But that's not my preferred way, so we're going to delete that. My preferred way is just MoGraph text object, and this creates a 3D text instantly and it's ready to go. What I like doing is centering my text by going to Align and Middle, and we're going to change the depth of our text to about 100. That's what I found to be pretty good whenever I'm working with Cinema 4D. And we'll change the name to, we're just going to make it a one letter, just for the sake of the exploding text. So you'll find out why later. I'll change my font. Let's go to D3 Euronism. I like this font. It looks pretty good in Cinema 4D. Next, what we need to do is we need to set up a little lighting area just so it looks a little better. To do that, we'll come up to our light up here and we'll create a floor. Next, we're going to come up to our light and create a light. And with our light, we're going to scoot it back some and drag it up. In order to add a shadow to our light, because as of right now, looking at our render, it looks pretty bleak. So to add a shadow, we go to our light, go to Shadow, Shadow, and Shadow Map Soft. And we'll turn that down to about 70, maybe a little lower. We'll go to about 59. 59 looks good. Add that, and there you have a basic shadow. Let's add a material to our text to make it look a little bit better. And to add a material, you want to go to File, New Material, or you can just simply double click anywhere in this box. Once we have our material, we double click and this brings up our material options. Let's turn off specular with color. I like to use a nice bright blue. That always looks good. And maybe we'll add some reflection. To add reflection, we'll click reflection, check it, and I like to turn the brightness of my reflection down to about, I don't know, 13, just so there's a little reflection showing. It always looks good. And let's add that to our text. To add it to our text, what we can do is either drop it directly on, or we can come up to our workspace box and drop it on our text object. So you can see now we have our basic text. That's as far as I'm going to go in setting up our scene and our text. Now to our actual explosion. To do the explosion, the first way, that's less desired, is we'll come up to this box, we'll click it, and we'll choose Explosion FX. Now we'll take our Explosion FX and drag it on top of our text object. Notice how the arrow is pointing down into a box. It's how it needs to be in order for it to work. So we'll drop it in, and you can already see our text is starting to explode. The bad thing about this one is you have to keyframe all of the animation, because as you can see, as I move along, nothing happens, which is kind of shitty. So in order to change whether or not our text is exploding or how much it's exploding is by time. And our time down here, as we move it up, we see more of an explosion. As we bring it down, less of an explosion. And that's what we would have to keyframe in order to make the exploding text. There's a bunch of settings associated with this. You can change which way it explodes. You can change how far it explodes, how fast it explodes, but we're not going to get into that right now because this is the less desired explosion. But this is just a general explosion that you can use if you're just trying to be fast. So we're going to delete that. Now, to make the explosion that I find is the best, we need to use the plugin Thrauzy. I'll leave a link in the description for everyone to download if you'd like. So to use Thrauzy, we're going to need to select our text object. We're going to have to come up to Plugins, choose Plugins, go to Thrauzy 1.22, and Thrauzy. This is a great plugin. It breaks apart your object into as many pieces as you really would like. Since we're in here, we're in Thrauzy, I'm going to use maybe 30, simply because I have a single text object, like it's just one letter, and it's going to break this one letter 30 times. Now if I had a longer word that was like, say, 5 letters, it's going to break each letter 30 times, and I mean, that can mess up your computer. It could take a while, and it's just not worth it. I would recommend using maybe 3 or 4, and that turns out looking pretty good. So we're gonna have our text object selected. We have our pieces selected. You don't really need to worry about the rest of this, and we'll choose break now. And there we go. We have our text broken. We can X out of this, and with our broken text, you can see if I play it, it breaks apart, but it just falls through the ground, which is what we do not want. In order to change this, we need to create rigid body on the floor. In order to do this, we're going to come up to our floor. We're going to right click on our floor, go down to MoGraph Tags, and choose rigid body. Now you can see when I play the animation, our text lays on the floor, and it looks very nice. Now, to actually make the text explode, in order to do this, you're going to come up to your objects box, and you can really choose any object you want, but some make sense more than others. The one I'm going to choose is a cube, just because it's simple and easy. You need to take your cube, or whatever object you're using, and line it up with your text. If your text was longer than just a T, you would need to adjust the width so that it fills the entire text. And with this done, you can see that it is taking up my entire text. We need to go to our cube, right click, go down to MoGraph Tags, and create another rigid body. And what this does is this creates our explosion. I mean, it looks very nice. And the one problem is, though, is when we have our explosion, so we scroll through to our explosion, if we look at it in our render, we can still see the square, which is what we obviously do not want. So to change that, we're going to come up to our cube again. We're going to right click, go to Cinema 4D Tags, and down to Compositing. And once you're in Compositing, you can basically uncheck every one of these you want, and that will ultimately get rid of our square in our render. And now we have just our exploded text, which looks great. About our box, if you adjust your box, you can create different ways of exploding the text, as in which direction, mostly. And say I scoot my box over here and up slightly. Now when it explodes to the left. And if I do it the other side, it will explode to the right. So that's something you can play around with as you please. I'd say that's about it. You have your exploding text, you have a basic area that you're using with lighting, you learn how to make a text, so that's about it. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. Thank you very much.